going to start with an Islamic greeting, which is peace and blessings be upon you all. I'm really honoured to be here, and Nick and I work together in some research, so I'm really proud of that piece of our journey because we get to share donor families' perspectives in research that's coming out. And so I'm a storyteller, and so I'm going to share Zaina's story, how she became an organ donor, and I'm going to weave in pieces of like recipient side as well, just so that you guys can see like how we kind of view everything that's happened to us. And I hope that that gives a sense of the other side of the story, which is often left out of this piece. I'm not very good at ad-libbing either, so I have it written down, but we're going to stick to the script. So it's been 2.5 years, the blink of an eye, and somehow a lifetime too. My daughter Zaina was 9 3/4 when she died and became an organ donor in March of 2023. And I have to say 3/4 because she was a Harry Potter fan, and she would absolutely kill me if I didn't. I can hear her saying, "Mum, I'm 3/4, that counts." And she'd be right. When you have children, people often say the days are long and the years are short, and I never really knew that until now. I'm a freak. So when you're grieving, time isn't linear. It stretches and shrinks like badly washed jeans, and days turn into months, and then all of a sudden you're 2.5 years on. Our daughter Zaina, my darling Zaini, ZZ1, light in human form, a walking curiosity cabinet, part wildflower, part wildling. She was obsessed with nature, wildlife, adventures, and anything remotely magical, including Harry Potter, of course. She was also a highly sensitive allergy child, and when I mean sensitive, it wasn't any kind of like, don't touch the cat when you sneeze. She would light up like a Christmas tree, and she could be a literal air quality monitor. So much so that the only thing to take away the reaction is time, and time is not your friend in these situations. So back in 2016, we lived in Belgium before migrating to Canada. It was myself, my husband, our eldest daughter, Zaina, affectionately known as Z1, and our youngest daughter, Ziva, who we called Z2, for obviously reasons. And that's the only time I say Z, it's dead. When we visited Canada, we saw a huge shift in Zaina's health. She was breathing easier, living better, so in 2019, we made the leap and moved to Canada for good. And she saw it as one big adventure. First we landed in Montreal, and then we moved to Mississauga right before a global pandemic, which was amazing. And then we finally bought our forever home in London, Ontario. And so that was a fresh start for all of us, full of hopes and dreams. We moved in at the end of February 2023, and Zaina now had her very own forever bedroom, which meant only one thing. She could finally stack all of her books, and there were a lot of them, and she could have herself a garden. These days, Zaina, still covered in snow, comes running into the kitchen from the back porch, cheeks red from the cold, yelling, "Mama, look, there's a blue jay. Oh my God, Dad, look, it's a woodpecker. Oh, look, red cardinal," she'd squeal with such excitement. It was really odd that there were so many birds in the bush because we were in the thick of winter, but it became the norm for us. Zaina loves the birds, and she has a special relationship with them. On a snowy Monday, March 13th morning, both girls started at their new school in London, the School of Magic. No joke. A literal dream come true for two Potterheads. Can you imagine their excitement? Ziva and Zaina were practically vibrating. And that afternoon, when I went to pick Zaina up from school, she was covered in snow, hair wild, eyes sparkling, leapt out of a tree, ran at me full force like a linebacker, and in her raspy voice squealed, "Mama, I had the best day of my life." We got home from school, and as any parent knows, hunger strikes. I never knew that 3 little pine nuts would turn the best day of her life into the worst day of ours. Those allergies that we thought we had a handle on sent her into anaphylaxis and also, of course, triggered an asthma attack. We did everything we were supposed to. EpiPen, inhalers, 911, everything very quickly. But unlike every other time, this time, nothing was working. We'd never had to use an EpiPen before, and she wasn't responding to the medications that we were told would save her life. Zaina actually begged me not to call 911, promising me she was okay, just a moment before she collapsed and went into cardiac arrest. And then I watched Nels doing his best to breathe life back into her. I watched in sheer panic, and as he did everything he could, knowing if he could give his breath to her, he would. Held in the arms of her dad, I knew deep down I watched Zaina take her last breath. The first arms to hold her when she came into this life were the same arms she left in. It's no surprise that the birds also stopped singing that day. As fate would have it, we moved around the corner from fire station number 2. The incredible fire crew arrived within minutes and did everything that they could with urgency and care, taking over CPR from Nils. More first responders followed, filling our quiet new home with sirens and voices. And while paramedics fought to save Zaina inside the living room, we were escorted outside into the cold by police. We stood there numb, not knowing if our daughter was alive or not, and in those moments we weren't just in shock. We were questioned and prodded and treated, however unintentionally, like we had done something. And then in the chaos, one person made all the difference between Zaina dying in our living room and not. Jodie Brennendorfer, a remarkable paramedic whose quick thinking and calm presence led to Zaina being intubated right at home, and that act bought us so much time. Soon after, we were escorted to the hospital by police, and I'll never forget walking through that corridor lined with the same first responders who had just fought for Zaina's life in our living room. An ER doctor came into the room where we were, all frantic, clearly frustrated by the circumstances that he was handling with Zaina. All we wanted to know was that she was okay and that we'd be able to take her home soon, but they didn't have any answers. They just were doing everything that they could. We were asked if we wanted to see her, and naturally we jumped at the chance and walked into what I can only describe as a real-life Grey's Anatomy episode, and I half expected Meredith Grey to walk out. And then we met Dr. Sanger, a much calmer and more composed ER doctor, and Dr. Corey Anderson, whose heart was as big and as stubborn as Zaina's. He looked us in the eyes and gently and honestly said, "I'm really scared for Zaina." And I knew that he'd tell us what we needed to hear in the most kind and compassionate way. He took his time with us, patiently updating us, answering any of our questions, many of them that we repeated 100 times over, and actually took the time to get to know our girl, and most importantly, making space to really get to know her. He asked about her life, what made her tick, and genuinely laughed at all the stories we threw his way, which honestly felt like a really genuine gift. I told him it took her 41 hours to come into this world, and that she would not be on board with a mediocre exit. If she had it her way, she'd probably vanish with the flick and swish of a wand, true Gryffindor style. Corey gave it everything, and she gave him a run for his money. It felt like she was still calling the shots from the other side. So on March 16th, Zaina was stable enough to have a nuclear medicine blood flow scan, and she was declared brain dead at 4:04 p.m. that day. We saw the brain scan that confirmed there was no brain activity, and found out that day that's called death determination by neurological criteria. Words that you never thought you'd ever hear. Soon after, we were asked if we would consider organ donation, an unimaginable question in an unimaginable moment. And yet, even in our grief, it feels like the only answer that makes sense for a child who love to give and share and help others is yes. And so that yes didn't just change our story, it begins 9 new ones. Somewhere, families will never fully know who were holding their breath, praying for a miracle. In saying yes, we become part of their prayers being answered. So we said yes to letting her help one last incredible time. Zaina's heart was initially offered to a 27-year-old woman, but to me, it didn't feel right. So when it turned out that Zaina's heart valves were incompatible, I felt a strange kind of relief. The next day, just after Jummah prayers, which is the weekly Friday Islamic congregation for Muslims, where on this particular one, many people were praying for our beloved Zaina, Megan, who some of you know, our Trillium Gift of Life coordinator, burst into the small PCCU room we were huddled in and exclaimed, "We've found a recipient." And she paused. "It's a girl." And then another pause, and with tears in her eyes, Megan added, "And she's 10 years old." Alhamdulillah, I whispered, all praise belongs to God. Zaina gets to be 10 after all. The recipient was a 10-year-old girl, and Zaina would have been 10 that May of 2023 if she lived. And to me, this was a divine favor that through Zaina's big, brave, generous heart, the organ of hers that was the most important to me, a piece of her gets to live on to be 10 and beyond. And I often think of that little girl and her family, how somewhere in another hospital, another mother's heart leapt at the same moment mine broke. One heart beating strong as ever, 2 mothers bound by the same rhythm, living opposite sides of the same miracle. So on March 19th, we walked our darling girl down to the OR, where a team of surgeons prepared to share her final, most extraordinary gift with their respective patients in various parts of the country. A less than 1% chance of being an organ donor, and she did it. Oh, of course she did. Her heart, pancreas, liver, and both her kidneys give life to a baby girl, a 10-year-old girl, an 11-year-old boy, a 27-year-old man, and a 67-year-old man. Her curious eyes that knew how to appreciate the world around her and see the best in others now help for others to see. And I often think about the people she shared her life with. A child playing again, a young man chasing his dreams, a grandfather taking in the beauty of the world around him. Their stories are woven with hers. Her life continues through them in ways I'll never fully know, but will always be grateful for. And I often wonder if they inherited her thirst for life, her kindness, her generosity, and her curiosity, and her wild and free nature. If you ever had the honour of crossing paths with someone like Zaina, you live differently, and so I think yes. Zaina always wanted to be in 2 places at once. Now she's in 9, and I call that some serious Harry Potter-like magic. There's a verse in the Quran that says, "And whoever saves one life, it is as if he saved all of mankind." And that verse doesn't just apply to her, it applies to everyone who helped, the firefighters, paramedics, doctors, nurses, everyone who tried, the ones who cared, and the ones who saw her not just as a patient. They are woven into her legacy too. We received a letter from one of her recipients, a whisper from the other side of giving, and proof that her light still moves in bodies not her own. I would just love to read that letter to you. So, dear donor family, we have received the wonderful gift of a pancreas that you and your loved ones so unselfishly gave. This gift is like no other I have received or that I will ever receive. We know that thoughtful, caring, and loving family made this gift of life possible. We can only express our deepest gratitude and always keep you in our thoughts. While we may not know you, rest assured our deepest gratitude extends from our family to yours. We have cried tears of happiness and sadness for both of our families. We will always remember you and your loved one, and in our remembering will always act to our highest good. We have known the best we can be. You have modelled it for us. We will live in gratitude for the remainder of our lives. In our deepest gratitude, you are recipient of loved one's pancreas. Their words are simple, honest, and deeply human. They don't know us, but they know our girl through the life she gave. Reading this letter, I realised that recipient families carry their own mix of grief and joy, the duality of that life. Their hope exists because of our loss, and somehow that connects us in ways we can't quite imagine and we can never explain. And even now, Zaina feels close, like she's just off playing, just out of sight. Maybe that's how I make sense of it, that somewhere another mum is looking after my child, that her heart is still beating, now in a girl who might have been her friend. They both get to turn 12 this year. I always knew that she was going to change the world, I just didn't think she'd give her life to do so. And one more thing, remember those birds who stopped singing the day that she died? Well, they came back exactly 7 days later, and one red cardinal still visits me when I think of her or speak of her. And I whistle like a lunatic to it, and it whistles back to me, and I call that a conversation. They say that time heals all wounds. I disagree. I feel like they just change shape and sit quietly just under the skin, under the surface, waiting. And I hope that Zaina reminds you why you said yes, or why someone said yes for you. My wish is that you embrace her passion for life and make every day the best day ever. Not just in memory of those who gave, but in honour of all who continue to live because of her. Zaina's legacy lives on in triumph, not in tragedy, and in gratitude, not in grief. She broke our hearts wide open, and in doing so, she let the light in. And she showed us how to live, love, give, and marvel. And now I put one foot in front of the other, because for me, forward leads to her, in the red cardinals, in every person she saved, in the families who celebrate birthdays, first steps, quiet mornings that once seemed impossible. We are all in some way recipients of her life. And I just wanted to share this last slide. Zaina had a prompted journal, and when she died, I found it, and I wanted to see if she filled it out, so I was kind of flicking through every page, and she had mostly filled it out, but there were some gaps, and I flipped over to the last page, and at the top it says what's next, and in big letters she wrote everything. And so that's my motto in life, what's next, everything. Thank you.